Welcome to Glide Chat, where we give you the rundown of all things ServiceNow. Let's talk about the now, right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Glide Chat. I'm here with John Castillo from Quality Clouds. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Brett.
Good. So if you could, let's just start with introductions. Give me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Absolutely. So I'm with Quality Clouds. Great product, and we love the partnership that we're fostering with GlideFast. I actually came up through consulting myself, so I know a little bit about what you guys do on a day-to-day basis. I spent 25 years in consulting. I was with Accenture, I was with IBM, spent a little time over at Salesforce, so I know the SaaS space pretty well. Did a little consulting for myself, and then ended up here at Quality Clouds, where we're doing a big splash here in the United States. We love the partnerships that we're building with a lot of our SI partners, because there's an expansion that we're doing in terms of the way that we're going after the market, and we'll get into some of that. But yeah, that's my history, and I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Well, that's great. Yeah, it sounds like we've got a lot in common on that respect, at least for how the career started and kind of where you are now. So for Quality Clouds, just to start there, give me your 60-second, 45-second elevator pitch. What is Quality Clouds? What's the value that you bring?
Right. We are a DevOps platform, and what we bring is governance as well as proactive tools that allow you to manage and prevent issues around your development going forward, right? And the value that we see in that is really, from a governance standpoint, it's really about checking and seeing where you are, right? So you may have a ServiceNow instance that you've had for many years. You want to know what's in there, how many issues you have, how much technical debt you may have. We're able to surface that. Now, the differentiator for us is that we're able to do that not only at the code level, but the configuration level, but also we're able to give you a sense for how long it's going to take you to fix those things. Now, you may not want to do all of it, but you can prioritize, and we're able to show you that. But we have a lot of tools that allow for us to run against the rules that dictate best practices in terms of how you do development in ServiceNow, and as well as Salesforce, but ServiceNow for this case, such that you don't get into those problems going forward. So think about it as guardrails that we put up that run against a rule set. It says you can't develop that way, and it'll send it back to the developer to fix it. So there's let me show you what it looks like now. Fix it. There's a prevention side, and there's keeping things more proficient going forward as you go into production.
There's one thing I noticed in the report readout that you guys have, and that's the cost savings, or rather how long it'll take to fix something, and then the cost savings as well. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we've gone down a path of, because as you think about us and you think about just DevOps overall, it's really putting together the story around, I want to be more productive, or I want my developers to be more productive. I want them to be positioned to either do support stuff or maybe some innovative stuff. Now, for us, there's some business value wrapped around all of that, because that's what you need to have certainly for clients these days. They're looking for that type of business value, cost savings. So what we're looking at is, if I am able to continue to make sure that developers are developing in the way that they should, we're being more proficient in our testing, we're being more proficient in what we're delivering to production, what does that look like? What is the cost of all of that all the way through as you go down that the life cycle of this SDLC, if you will, right? And we pick out the number of hours that it takes in each one of those phases. So when you think about that in terms of the quality across all of those things, there's a number associated and a cost associated with that. We're able to pick that out and tell you, well, these are the number of hours that it's going to take you in order to make this happen. It's just not, hey, I'm going to do code fixes, but also If that code fix makes its way into testing, makes its way into production, what is the life cycle of that cost? So we're able to pull that out, show that to the customer. There's a lot of value in being able to see that and what you can save. And we can actually put real numbers against it.
So how did quality clouds evolve over the years? So there was obviously an initial use case or an aha moment from your founders. Talk a little bit about that history, if you could.
Yeah, so the history on it. So our founders, Angel Marquez and Albert Francesa, they both came from industry. These were industry guys who used ServiceNow. They started in ServiceNow, implementing ServiceNow and working with ServiceNow. But they came upon some issues as they were doing development and seeing how developers were actually developing on the platform. There's very customized ways of doing things. So the original use case was really, how do we get developers to develop in a more efficient and productive way? And when you think about ServiceNow and you say to yourself, there are best practices that are wrapped around those things, how are you able to collect all of those that are coming from the industry or the development side of things, but package that in such a way that it's within the tool and you're able to leverage that to make developers more standardized and efficient, right? So that was the original sort of idea around it. As the tools built out, as Quality Clouds came into being, it started to evolve into, okay, now I understand that, but what does that mean in terms of the technical debt, right? And what does that look like? What does technical debt even really mean to the organization, right? As it started to extend, then there came into places where, okay, we can actually have developers work in a very different way, meaning that it's more standardized in terms of the way that they're going to do development going forward. So it started to get itself into more of what the quality gates, right, capability within the tool, where you're able to gate off what's going on, right, and it's able to send it back. And then it started to extend into, some of the tools that are around peer reviewing and everything else that we're doing to be able to watch and monitor how developers are developing. So that's kind of the history and how we've expanded some of our capabilities. I know we can get into some of the other things that we're doing going forward and what we're thinking about for the platform, but that's how it really started out.
So I do want to address what ServiceNow currently has as an available option versus what you have. Would you look at it as a value add to what currently exists from a ServiceNow review of the platform? Well, how do you see yourselves?
Yeah, I think we're a value add to what exists for ServiceNow. They have Impact, they have some other tools that they use. But we're actually, when you leverage Quality Clouds, you're getting down to a deeper level of configuration that you can see and get exposed to you. That way you can make some decisions around that. It's not just about static code and some of those areas that some of the tools that are within ServiceNow actually touch on. So we bring that value added piece, right? Because when you think about the configuration pieces, architecturally, how are you handling some of these things as well, versus just development, right? So it's just taking it down to that separate level of visibility around what's happening underneath the covers and being able to make some real good decisions around how you're able to architect change, right?
No, yeah, that makes complete sense, and thank you for addressing it. You talked about the industry and how the founders came from the industry side. What do you think is broken with how companies manage technical debt today?
When we're talking to customers, it's really we're able to surface where the issues are and say, look, you've got them categorized in such a way that, where you can see the performance, you can see the security issues, you can see some of the manageability issues, maybe even some of the scalability issues. And here's your overall score. right? You're at maybe 60%, maybe you're a little bit bad on your security. And, customers look at that and go, well, it's working today, so I guess it's not that bad, right? But as you start to think ahead and you start to think about how much am I really spending on supporting all of this, maybe it's worse than I think. If I start to look at some of the other innovative things that I want to do as it relates to, I want to have AI introduced to my environment. I may want to extend the platform and bring in more capabilities that ServiceNow is coming through with, AI assistance, all of these things. Am I ready for that, right? And Quality Clouds can give you that answer, right? So you can actually, and it's actionable items, right? When we talk about the way that we size up the technical debt, you can actually do something about it. So that's where we see it.
Would you view technical debt being more than just a dev issue? I know you're a DevOps platform, but just in your opinion, where does the technical debt start, stop? Who's responsible for it?
Yeah, the technical debt is I think it is somewhat a dev issue, but I think it's a business issue too. The reason why I say that is because, I was reading something recently from Gartner around measurements and monitoring around SaaS platforms and cloud-based platforms, and this idea of technical debt, and how it gets all the way not only down to just the development side, but how you architect as well, and being able to actually have visibility to that is going to be really key. And they're actually projecting that, companies will really be dealing with technical debt issues down to the architectural level, probably 30% more over the next year, right? So if you don't deal with it today, all the things that you want to do in terms of innovation that we already talked about, you're not going to be able to do, right? Because it's going to compound on itself. So that becomes a business issue, right? Because it becomes a business decision that you need to make. Am I going to fix this thing, or am I just going to leave it the way it is and I'm just going to be behind the market, or where the business expects me to be? So I think all around in a company, it's really, not only just is it an operational issue, is it a development issue, but, it's a dollars and cents issue, right? So the business has to step in and say, we need to make some decisions now. Something like a Quality Clouds would be efficient in being able to tell us where those things are, and we could do something about it now. We can make those decisions. We could prioritize the things that make sense for us, right?
So with your customers, what would you say, or what have they told you is their ROI when they first start looking at Quality Clouds as an option, first when they implement, first when they start developing, having those stopgaps, those guardrails, those checkpoints? What's that ROI look like for your customers that you've seen from a metric perspective?
Yeah, we see it could be different depending on the customer. We've seen it where customers have come back to us and said, you guys have saved us $900,000 a month in our support. Right?
I was expecting a year. You said month, so.
Yeah, no, this is a literal true thing. So it could be on that end where we're saving them lots of money in that regard. And then there are other customers who are coming back and they're saying it's more of a productivity thing for us, right? So I get productivity gains by using your tool where I could divert resources to do other things, right? So I don't need 10 or 12 developers doing my support work. I could do it with 6, or I could do it with 8. I could divert those resources off. So it really depends. But when we come in, we generally do something in the way of a business evaluation, right? Where do you want to get to? And what kind of investment are you going to make up front? And what does that mean to you in terms of the work that you're going to do and execute against? And we could tell you, back of the envelope math on it, to tell you exactly, kind of where you're going to end up, right? And what kind of a return you would get on your investment. So we do a bit of a business evaluation, and then, customers, they make those decisions. And we usually come out pretty good on that, right? When they invest in us, they usually get that return pretty quickly.
When we're looking at different technologies, platforms, partners in the ServiceNow ecosystem, GlideFast has made an investment in reaching out and developing those new partnerships and bringing in new solutions so that we don't have to say no when we're looking to addressing pain points and problems with our customers or our prospects and saying, what keeps you up at night? How can we help you get past this, right? What's important to you, kind of a thing. We've made those decisions to partner with companies like yourself, and more recently, X-Type is one of the newer ones that we have. And so we were talking the other day, and they said, we have a partnership with Quality Clouds. So what does that partnership look like between, basically two different DevOps tools? How do you guys work together? Talk about that a little bit, how your solutions work together.
Yeah, so we did a lot to bring in some of our solution partners and our ISVs that we work with. And the real thinking around it is, when you think about the DevOps platform or the story around DevOps, right, there are a lot of pieces to it. We have a concept we call shift left, right? So we deal with what's in the IDE. The development environment is where we like to play. Although we do have parts to play within the cycle of quality across the board, and we understand that, there's certain capabilities we don't have on that side. So we don't do a whole lot in testing. We don't do any of the release stuff, all of that. So we knew we had to forge these partnerships because the value that we see is really being able to connect or interconnect with some of the best-in-class tools that are out there, X-Type being one of them. Another one we work with is Capado. We also work with them as well for some of the integrations, especially in the ServiceNow space, where they're starting to do more and more. Automate Pro is another one that we have an integration with, because all of these, when you think about sort of the basket of tools that are within that DevOps space, it makes sense for us to integrate with each one of them, because a lot of them don't deal too much with the development environment and what's going on in the development environment. So that gives us sort of a differentiator that they're interested in. So there's the entry point and then the handoffs that we do over to them to make sure that we have that complete picture of what DevOps looks like for customers, right? And then when going back to your point around, ROI, when you start to expand some of that ROI story across all of those different pieces, it becomes a bigger return on investment for clients as well. Right, there's a greater story to tell around how they do DevOps going forward and how they become more efficient.
No, I agree, and that's great. Thanks for touching on that with X-Type and the other partners that you're working with. I do want to shift a little bit over to you personally. We've learned a lot about Quality Clouds and what you guys can offer, but now you're going to be in the hot seat. I just want to know a little bit more about your background with your, how you came up in this space. So if you want to just go through a little bit of your history, that'd be great.
Yeah. As I said, I've been in the consulting game for a long time. I started way back in the 90s, the gray hair comes from somewhere.
It's experience.
That's all experience, yeah. That's what we call it these days. Yeah, I spent 20 years at Accenture. So I was there. I was tech arc for most of my career. I was a dev guy. And then I grew up in financial services. So financial services, more in the capital market space. So I was dealing more on the trading floor and doing a lot of, risk analysis is where I was at. I was dealing with the risk desk guys on a day-to-day basis, making changes for them. And then I grew through the organization and got more into account management. Right, so that's usually the path that you go when you're at Accenture to make it to partner, right? So was able to do that. Very, very successful there. Had a great time. And then I moved over to Salesforce. SaaS platforms were starting to expand. The cloud, everything was going crazy in that space. Lots of innovation. And went over to Salesforce and was working in their customer success group, where I was helping to build out what they had in financial services around banking and capital markets. So I spent about 3 years there. Great group of people, had a great time there. And then I moved over to IBM, where I was helping them to build out their Salesforce practice in financial services. And, I kind of did my own thing for a little while. I was at some smaller consultancies after that. And then I got to Quality Clouds. And one of the things that brought me to Quality Clouds was that I love the product. I think it was something in the market that was missing, right? In terms of how you do development, how you do delivery, and just this whole idea around the technical debt and DevOps overall, right? Because there's been a whole lot of innovation that's happened over the last 5 years. Lots of companies that are out there. ServiceNow, doing amazing things, obviously. But the thing that was missing is, how are we making sure that we're delivering at the kind of scale that's expected, or what ServiceNow would look for, what your customers would look for, et cetera. And there was a gap there. And I think Quality Clouds filled it very well, at least on the development end. And, they were looking for people to expand them into the U.S. So me as a person, I've always wanted to be in those spaces where I could help an organization to grow, because I grow from that, right? So I've been very excited about those things. And when they knocked on my door and they asked me, "Hey, John, you want to come on?" It was an absolute yes. So I love working with these guys. They're great people.
That's great. I want to get into a little bit more about you, but first, you have to have some war stories from the last, 20, 30 years of your experience there. What would you say, we're not naming names, we're not naming and shaming, but if you look at the customers with the most, say, shocking technical debt or the most complex system, it could be Quality Clouds, it could be your prior engagement in your consulting. What have you seen?
I'll do two. I'll do one in the prior,
Okay,
because I've been around so long, so I don't want to, cord myself off just the last 3 years.
Right.
But in my history, I was on an engagement where I just become like a program manager, right? Mm-hmm. So usually, I'll use one name, this is Accenture, because we have been doing a business with a large insurer, and they're in several countries. They're global for us. And the reason why I was there is because they were going to implement a risk analytics tool at the time. And this was going to be a big move for them to be able to manage their portfolios going forward. Have great visibility into it and be able to make quick decisions. But the teams were going to be global as well. So as you can imagine, we were in 3 countries in the U.S. We're in India as well as Japan. And we're in 3 states. So we're in Illinois, we're in down in Georgia as well as New York. So I'm the program manager, and I have to take all this funds of building the plan. I got to go out, I got to meet everybody, I got to build up the team. And I was actually in 3 countries and 3 states in 2 weeks. My wife thought I was a nut, right?
Yeah.
But I was able to get through it. And one of the, from a technical perspective, doing the implementation wasn't as bad. There was heavy amounts of customization that need to happen. But as you know, data migrations are always the most painful part, especially when you're talking about different ways of managing data privacy across different countries and how you do that. How are you going to develop? We're better at it today, but way back then we weren't as good at it, right, in terms of how we manage data and handle data and all the integrations that we had to do and how we check in with the business over in Japan and make sure that they were comfortable in some of the reporting aspects. And yeah, it was from a operations perspective, there was a lot to do. But from a technology perspective, there was a lot to do. You know, it wasn't always clear how you, we're better at it today, obviously, in the ways that we manage data. But back then, it was just a lot of it was manual. There was a lot of manual push. There was a lot of manual uploads. There was a lot of manual downloads. There was a lot of that. So it was painful from that perspective. So that was probably my worst. I still tell that story today, even though it's about 18, 19 years ago, right? From a quality cloud's perspective, the worst we've seen, there is a more of an electronics manufacturer down south, and we went in and we said, hey guys, we'll do a scan for you, and just to show you what you got going on behind the scenes there. And we were able to run that scan, and it came back with 500,000 issues. We had it almost broke our system. There were so many. And so we were able to work that through. But the amount of technical debt that they had to get to those issues would take them at least 100 years to really fix it. All right? Yeah. Literally.
Yeah.
So so we had to have that conversation with them. At that time, they were like, we're not going to deal with this right now, but we want you guys to come back and really show us what this is all about. So we're still having those conversations, but that's probably the worst we've seen. I mean, it really, our product guys really scratched their heads on this. They were like, whoa, we've never seen that before. So, it's pretty interesting. The other one that was close to that was, I believe it was a utilities company out in Europe, and I'm only getting this secondhand because I've been with the company for about a year, and they had somewhere close to about 200, almost 300,000 issues that they had in one instance. Yeah. And we thought that was amazing. Yeah. But we broke it with this other company.
Yeah. And you definitely have to make that decision as an organization. Do we fix it? Yeah. Or do we just pull what we can and then Z-boot and then move forward from there and put everything back on kind of a thing?
Exactly.
It really boils down to not just an ROI conversation, but a time. Right? We'll be able to perform our upgrades in the middle of this, and it takes a while to get the best practices put in there.
Yeah, because the takeaway for us was that you're going to need some help. You need maybe a GlideFast to go in there and help you to think this one through, and what the best practices out in the industry would dictate around how you deal with this kind of situation. And then obviously you got to make a decision as to, like you said, do I fix it? Which probably doesn't make sense if I have that many issues. Yeah. Or do I just divert and move over to a brand new platform? Right. And what is that going to take from me? And just a business case against both of those. Yeah. So they're still thinking about it. We'd love to be able to bring you guys in on that conversation.
Absolutely.
But
it's funny you bring up that use case or that example. I had something similar back. What are we talking? I've been doing this for 12 years, so about 10 years ago at this point, and I got brought into we'll call them a large conglomerate, who had about 7 or 8 instances, and their developers, they did everything in-house, but they brought, I was at ServiceNow at the time, and they brought us in and said, why don't you evaluate and let us know what we're looking at? And there was no quality clouds, there was no health scan, there was nothing to help us from that perspective, so we're manually looking under the hood. And for some of these, we would basically set our stopwatches and say, how long does it take this page to load? We're talking 30, 40 seconds. Wow. So we're not talking, 1 or 2 seconds trying to get that down to milliseconds. It was an eternity for their end users. Wow. And so we look under the hood and we're like, well, a couple questions for you. Why didn't you use a UI policy for this? Why did you code all this out longhand? And they said, well, what's a UI policy? Oh, no, this is going to be a fun engagement because they didn't know what they didn't know. Right. And they happened to have a lot of developers that were excellent developers. But when you're developing on ServiceNow, it's different. It's a different animal at the end of the day. So it's just It's fascinating. Just sit there and go, so what have you decided? What are you going to do? Are we going to start over? Like, no, you just undo stuff and we go back out of the box. Like 6 months later, we'll get you there. I think we had a team of 7 just going through and documenting and undoing stuff, and it was an experience early in my ServiceNow career. So.
That's an amazing story because when I think about the way we categorize things from a quality clouds perspective, it's 4 different categories. Either you can how easy is it going to be for you to scale, manage going forward, the performance aspect, which I'll get back to, and then the security, right? A lot of customers, they'll look at security and go, oh my God, of course, we need to do something there. But performance never gets a whole lot of, attention.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, it kind of works today, Nobody's really screaming that much. The business may be a little pissed off with us, but, we're able to, get them to be happy again, at least for a short period of time. But as you build more and more, what you just said, on ServiceNow, it's very complex in terms of the way you build and the way that you manage sort of how the application is going to perform, right? That's something that you should really be looking at, right? And if you let it compound over time, like the story you were telling, it could be very expensive as you go forward. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So with Quality Clouds investing heavily on the ServiceNow side and the Salesforce side, why those platforms? Do you have a lot of other platforms that exist out there, a lot of competition to ServiceNow? What was the driving point or the decision point to say, these are the 2 we're going to pick, specifically ServiceNow?
Yes, ServiceNow is innovating. Like every time we go to Knowledge, and we're going to go to Knowledge in another month here, we're probably going to hear something new that they're rolling out. Especially as things with AI and process automation and all of those things start to come more into focus. So ServiceNow is a platform that's going to be around for a long time. A lot of customers have bought into it, obviously, because of all the value that it brings to their organizations. And there's ways to extend it. There's customizations you can do, all of that, right? So you have a bit more flexibility with it. And I think customers value that. And for us, given that we're in the DevOps space and want to manage development and standardize, it makes sense for us to be working and partnering with ServiceNow around how that all happens, so that the transitions that happen from a development standpoint to being able to customize, build, and grow, that makes sense. The same is true for Salesforce, right? Salesforce is the same. They've been growing for a long time. They're always adding a new cloud. They're always building new things. The ways they do development is always changing. So we want to be able to stay in that market and change with that. We are, however, in the future looking at some other platforms. I won't name them yet, but we are extending. So there's a lot of strategy sessions that's happening with the product teams, and they're starting to have some conversations with some of our partners as well as some of our customers around what next, what makes more sense. So we're growing in that space as well, right? Looking at other opportunities. But I think for those 2 platforms, those are the best ones, the best horses to ride on at this point, because those platforms, when you think about customization, extension, and growth, those are the 2 that made more sense for us.
We touched on this briefly earlier, our partnership and our relationship here. Why do you think the partnership between Quality Clouds and GlideFast works?
Because you guys are amazing. You guys are great people to work with. But I think it works because when we think about the vision for what we want to bring to the market and what you guys are driving at in the market, it actually aligns. And I mean, we're both working with the ServiceNow platform. right? Great platform that it is. But also, when we talked about our partnership, what you guys are going in terms of being able to help customers look at not only just their existing platforms and new transformations that they would like to do with ServiceNow. The level of assessment that you guys are looking at, right? When you came to us and you said, hey, we'd like to be able to have you guys come in as part of the offering set, right? But these are the three things that we want to look at. We want to look at how we want to do deep analysis on the actual instance. We want to be able to come out with some good recommendations, and we want those to align to the way, the GlideFast methodology around how you want to go forward, right? And that could be blind to the customer or open to the customer. So there was some flexibility in the ways you guys were thinking about it, right? Meaning that, we could sit behind the scenes and you guys just use us as a service on the top, or you can expose us if you like to and say, hey, these are the guys that are providing the service that we provide, right? And I think that works for us, right? It very much aligns to the strategy that we have in terms of go-to-market to say, we're flexible. We can actually provide this service to our partners in this way, or maybe some other way, right? But I think given the fact that GlideFast was very flexible in terms of the way they were thinking about that and how it aligns so much to the methodology that you have, so it's part of what you do, and us just fitting into that, it made the partnership a no-brainer for us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all the kind words, and I would agree with you. When we were looking at what else can we offer our customers, it was looking at the current offerings that we have where, we can do an ITOM assessment, we can do an ITIL or ITSM assessment, a platform assessment, but it turns into an architect and a BPC logging in and inspecting and doing a manual inspection. And there's something to be said about, not just the cost savings, but also time savings.
Right.
So if we're being approached, this is not a problem that we can solve in 6 to 12 months. We need to know now what's wrong. And before, it might have been, hey, it's 3 weeks, it's 4 weeks, we'll review everything and then we'll do a readout. We really just wanted that automated approach to say, okay, we've done our scan, here's what we're seeing. Now let's talk about how long this is going to take to remediate. Let's get you back to healthy at the end of the day. So definitely think it's a good pairing there.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. And the way you guys are thinking, because even when you get to the other side of this, so that's all the assessment stuff, that's all the recommendations. Let's get you healthy again. Let's remediate as much as possible. But there's also the other end of it, which is, how do you support all of that going forward? So there's a story around the end of the line, which is really around, we don't want you to get back into that situation again, so you can leverage Quality Clouds to do that. And certainly the GlideFast methodology around how we keep that going, the engine's still going. But also, how am I going to support it going forward? Right? What does that model look like? Am I still using some of these tooling? Is there more that I'm bringing to it? All of that you guys bring as well. So there's sort of that change management component that is sometimes missed, right? That you guys would be able to benefit from as well.
All right, I think we've established the value add of Quality Clouds. I do want to, before we wrap, I want to get back to you. John, what motivates you? You've been doing this for so long. You're still in it.
Yeah.
You're not stopping.
Yeah.
So what keeps you going?
Yeah, I like helping people. I like clients. When I started my career, I was sort of a backroom developer, if you will. Right? I was, the guy over in the cubicle over there. You're developing a whole lot of great stuff. Just stay over there, keep pumping it out. But I wanted to move in the front. I love being in front of clients. I love having these kind of conversations where you dive in deep and you're trying to find out where the solution is, or even trying to expose what the problem is, right? But before you even get to the solution. So I've always been in that space. So what gets me going as it relates to this is that drive to want to know what innovation is coming next. Mm-hmm. So when I've made job decisions in my life, it's really been about that. You know, can I stay on the cusp of different innovations that are happening out there, so I can stay on top of that. And I've always been a technology guy. I love technology. I'm always going to be in that space, right? So the love of that as well. And just for my own personal growth, I've been around a long time, and I've been growing for a long time. And I'm always amazed that there's a lot that I don't know. I'm not amazed by that, but there's a lot that I don't know, and it's amazing that I can get to know those things and meet great people, and be able to partner and do all these kind of things. I love my job right now, so dealing with the different partners that we have, GlideFast being one of them. It's just amazing to me what we can do together. And when we can go in and dig in and figure out what makes sense for both of us, both organizations, that makes me happy. It gets me up, has me thinking, wants me to bring new ideas to the table. All of that is great to me. I love it.
From a personal level, what would be something that people might be surprised to know about you? Let's go a little bit deeper, John.
Yeah. I'm a pretty happy guy. I have a great family. I have 2 kids. One just getting ready to leave college, and the other one's getting ready to go into college. So I have that as well. I have a great wife. Love her very much. We've been together for about 25 years. So I'm a family guy. I work really hard. I've been, as I've talked about, I've been in this business for a long time, especially consulting. And we know that consulting could be a grind, right? So, still love it though. But I think the other thing that, folks may not know about me, what could I think? I'm a pretty healthy guy, meaning that, I'm up in age and up in years, but, I still go to the gym. I still run.
I can say what's up.
Yeah. I can still do all those things. And I'm still very, I've had a good life, and I've had a good, interesting experience in this life. And, I've been able to meet some great people along the way. And those things really, when you think about all your experiences that you have, we always try to think of them in moments along the way, right? This moment and that moment, this was great, that was bad. I've had more good moments than bad ones, I could say, with confidence, and it makes me happy. It really does. And I've got great kids. I've got a great family. We have a good life, and the fact that I could do things like this is amazing to me. I've never done anything like this. I never thought I would. So this is what keeps me going. That's amazing.
What about travel? What's the most interesting place you've been, or favorite place that you've ever been in the world?
My favorite place that I've been to in the world. Well, I've been to 2 good places, so I'll do a number 1 and number 2. And we talked about this a little bit before the pod started. I've been to India, and I was there for 6 weeks, and I was doing a big engagement that I was starting up. So I was starting up a big development team out there. So I had to be out there for 6 weeks, and we were just starting the delivery center that we had out there as well. And what was amazing about that experience was the city that we were in, which was called Chennai. I think it used to be called Madras, but it's on It's on the eastern side of India. And what's so amazing about that is that the city was building at the same time that, so you could see the amazing growth that was happening at that time. There were skyscrapers being built up. They were starting to pave the roads, but they also still had farming parts of so it was sort of like mixed together. But it was kind of amazing in that, my family had the opportunity to go out there with me because I was going to be out there so long. But it was amazing to see the change in the culture that was happening out there. There were some people who owned cars. There were a lot of people who didn't own cars. So it was all kind of mixed in. But, I've been out there recently, and you wouldn't even know that sort of thing was happening. That transition was happening. It's so much more cosmopolitan now. But that was a great one. The second one was Japan. When I went out to Japan, I was out in Tokyo for probably 1 week, a month, for about 7 months, and it's just an amazing culture out there. Everybody keeps to themselves. The food was great. When you engage people, they're very happy to talk to you and deal with you. It was just a great time. I had such a great experience out in Japan that was not like any other place I've been, because the culture was. You could tell the culture was very different from the United States, obviously, but everybody seemed to understand that there was a way of working together. There was a way of talking to people. There was a way of walking. There was a way of, even when there were crowds. So I was on a crowded train one time, and these people, it seemed like everybody understood how to stand, how to hold the pole. It's like I was the only one who didn't know. All right, I didn't know what was going on, but I got acclimated after being out there for a while. But I just love the culture. When I go to these places and when I engage, I just I take in the culture, I see how different it is from my own culture, and I love that, just understanding more. And then I go and start to look at history and all of that. But it's a lot of fun. So those are the 2 places.
No, that's fantastic. No, thanks for sharing. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
2 final questions, and then we'll go ahead and wrap. These will be more of a rapid fire. I'll say, what tech trend excites you the most? You've been in tech for a long time, consulting in tech. What do you see as the future?
Wow, the future. Process automation is a big one. I think it's sort of underserved at this time. I think there are some that are looking into the space a little bit more, but I think there's a lot more. When you think about the process itself and taking all those elements that may still be managed from a manual perspective and able to add those in, you're creating a small app to be able to do it and infuse that into the process itself. I think that was more interesting to me because one of the things is it gets you down into the deep level of how people actually do things, right? And you translate that into some sort of technology that would handle it, rather than be, RPA or something like that would handle it. But being able to do that and orchestrate sort of that process is very interesting to me. But where I think things are going is, AI is here, right? The managing of that data is here, right? And there's so many of the more interesting things that you could do with AI is just where everything's going to start to go, right? All these assistants that are starting to come out, right? To be able to understand and know what's going on and be able to get information very quickly. The only issue is if it's completely right or wrong. Those are questions you have to go through. But I think that's where everything is going to go. Salesforce obviously is doing a big push from an agent force perspective. ServiceNow is doing something very similar as well. So I think the next phase of all of this, especially for us, is certainly developing and credentializing that you're ready for that as your organization is starting to grow into that space. But even ourselves from an AI perspective, right? So you think about some of the information we give back from a quality cloud's perspective is, hey, you've done something wrong here. Here's where it's wrong, right? We're starting to put into play, something in the way of a co-pilot or something more AI-driven that would say, yes, that's wrong, but here's how you fix it. Here's some code that you could just plop in there and run, right? So it makes it more efficient. The developer doesn't have to do much. They've got at least a sample of something that would deal with the problem, or maybe even update it without, push this button if you want it to be fixed, right? Push button, fixed, run it again, done, right? So I think those advances are going to be something that we're going to start to see going forward. It's going to be, more efficient, more efficient, more efficient, more productive.
What about overhyped? What do you think the biggest IT trend or technology trend is overhyped?
I think some parts of AI is a little overhyped, although, we're all going in that direction. But I think we're not fully there yet. And I think it's still the shiny object that's out there for many companies at this point. I want to do that too. Well, you're not ready for that. Right? You're totally not ready, and your data is not in the space where you can do it. Your applications, your stack is, pretty bad. You need to upgrade a lot of these things, and that's going to cost you a whole lot of money to even get yourself at the starting gate. So the hype on it is, so the way I would position is it is a bit overhyped, but I think it's overhyped because so many want it, but they can't have it.
Yeah, I would kind of agree. I would say that there's a lot of excitement and there's a need, but there's not a catalyst necessarily.
Right.
So it's, what's my use case for wanting to engage in this? So what's the catalyst to engage in getting AI? Is really what it boils down to is, what's my use case? We know we need it. We know we have to get on board. But to your point, are we ready? And then once we're ready, why? What's the why? And I think that's where part of that comes in. And you can even go down the road on robotics and everything else where it's like, well, are robots going to replace everything? No, not everything. I think you'll still need that human interaction, or at least that logical empathy. Your AI bot can only be so humanistic.
We're years away from getting to the place where I think what people think in their minds AI is going to produce and do for us versus what it really is. I think the reality is we're not there yet. There's some great advances, some good stuff that they're doing, but it's still sort of in that space, just like you said, the use case, what's really driving it? Are we really trying to solution something that's relevant and necessary, right? So, I agree, totally.
All right. Well, on that note, I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming out to talk to me, and thank you everyone for joining this episode of Glide Chat. Thank you, John.
Thank you, sir.
Do you have a topic in mind that you'd like to discuss? Reach out to us at glidefast.com and subscribe to our podcast for new episodes. Thanks for listening.